The search continues. Mexican authorities are turning every stone to find the current most wanted man in the country, drug lord Joaquin Guzman, commonly known as El Chapo. Guzman escaped from a maximum security prison in Mexico on July 11th. A prison break as seen in Hollywood. El Chapo managed to slip out through a 1.5-kilometer-long tunnel leading from his cell's shower to a half-constructed empty house in the fields. As the government offers a $3.8 million reward for Guzman's capture, the federal judge on the case believes El Chapo did not act alone. 3 prison workers have been ordered to be taken into custody. And it isn't the first time that the drug lord has challenged the Mexican forces to a chase. He had already broken out of a heavily guarded facility back in 2001. The second time around, Mexicans worry about the country's ability to really fight the war on drugs. Our focus this week is on Mexico. Hello and welcome to our focus on Mexico, where the prison escape of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the most notorious and successful drug trafficker in the world, raises many questions. Now let's try to get answers to maybe some of them with our first guest for today, Isaac Toussier, a local journalist joining us now from Mexico City. Hi, Isaac.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
So tell us, what is the latest update regarding El Chapo's escape and the investigation and manhunt after him?
Well, since El Chapo escaped, there have been a lot of things that happened. First of all, the US government applied for an extradition process in Mexico, which was at first granted, but then revoked. And the reason which it was revoked is still unknown, but we do know that the lawyers of El Chapo have been working on this process for a while now.
So what concerns the Mexican public nowadays? Is it the fact that the drug lord is out there free, or the lack of trust in the Mexican authorities?
Well, let's remember the perception that Mexicans have about their government, which is not very good. Of course, any character that would challenge that image, that would challenge the government, which has been very corrupt and has set out blunt cases of corruption, of misinformation, is of course going to be very well seen by the people.
Yes, but he had built a criminal empire in Mexico, and yet the public seems to admire him. I mean, folk songs praise him. T-shirts with his image on it are #1 sellers in the markets, and they even made El Chapo's piñatas. So how can this contradiction be explained?
Well, the relationship that the cartels and the drug lords have with society is a very complex one. Of course, most of the society is against the drug lords, most of the society is against El Chapo, because we can see it in a broader view. But there are many people, especially in the north of Mexico, that are in favor of the drug cartels because they support the local economy, and they go as far as building schools or libraries. And so in a micro scale, you can say that the drug lords help the smaller communities, which is why they admire them.
Isaac, and you know, in 2015, many countries across the world are legalizing the use of soft drugs, sometimes even hard drugs. And one of the claims supporting this is the fact that this might reduce the organized crime, like the mafia, like the drug cartels. Does such a discourse exist?
Well, that's a discourse that has been going on for a while, and it's become very popular not only in Mexico, but in the whole of Latin America. Let's remember that Uruguay was the first country to legalize marijuana totally. That is a discourse, that is something that the government has been checking on up, and of course there are several different opinions. The main opinion and the main thing that people are saying is no, that would only strengthen the cartels.
Isaac, thank you so much for your wonderful insights.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being with you.
The border between Mexico and the United States has recently been in the spotlight thanks to a visit by Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his remarks about immigration. Trump accused the Mexican government of sending undesirable citizens, including rapists and criminals, and added that Mexican immigrants should be considered a public health concern. Now, to discuss this matter of immigration, let's say hello to Natalia Rebolo, human rights activist. So, Natalia, how are these latest comments comments made by Trump received in Mexico?
We were worried about the comments of Donald Trump because we believe that there's a lot of discrimination behind what he's saying, and beyond he being the candidate or anything, is analyzing why people believe that being immigrant tends to be a criminal. So they're linking like immigrant and then you're going to be a criminal. So that's the thing that worries like human rights defenders and discrimination issues that actually gets into immigrants.
You're probably very familiar with, you know, the arguments against immigration, such as they don't pay enough tax, they come here to get welfare. What do you have to say against such accusations?
Well, immigrants nowadays, they do pay a few taxes. They're not all taxes, but there's only a matter of responsibility of the employer, because the employer has also to make sure that the employee is actually paying taxes, and the employer has to do that as well. So we were all very excited about this immigration reform that was going to happen in March, last March, but it didn't. They do the job Americans can't do anymore, and they have like the remits, who is like important values in American economy, and the taxes.
Natalia, what makes a person want to leave Mexico?
A few of years ago, I would have said better opportunities or better jobs or better education. But nowadays, I think it's a matter of security. So people are going to the United States because of matter of security, or even immigration, like intern migration in Mexico from state. There's a lot of migration because of security.
And a new research published by the University of New Hampshire shows that the number of Mexicans entering the United States, legally or otherwise, has been decreasing sharply in recent years. How can that be explained?
It has decreased, but only immigrants who actually live there are returning. And this is a phenomenon because Mexican people are very like to be with families and culture-wise, so they actually come back to be with families and not just being by themselves, spending 30 or 40 years just earning money and having like 12 hours works and being by themselves. So they just go for a couple of years, they make some money, they have some opportunities, and then they come back to be with their families and spend more time with them.
Natalia, thank you so much.
Goodbye.
And now what else is going on in Mexico?
Hundreds of Mexicans marched last week in Mexico City to mark 10 months since 43 student teachers from Guerrero went missing and were presumed dead. The 10-month anniversary comes just after an independent Mexican commission said it found serious flaws in the investigation into the apparent massacre of the students last September. The Mexican government says 2 million Mexicans fell into poverty between 2012 and 2014. The poverty rate increased to 46.2% last year from 45.5% in 2012, equivalent to a total of 55.3 million people in the nation of nearly 120 million. The poverty level is roughly in line with that of 2010, suggesting that the modest economic growth of the last 4 years has not been enough to improve low-income people's circumstances. To combat obesity, which Mexico City has declared a public health priority, lawmakers have introduced a measure to promote exercise. Free metro rides or a free pack of condoms are being given if passengers perform 10 squats. Mexico is ranked second in the world in obesity, with some 37 million people who qualify as obese. Mexicans have found a way to hit back at fugitive drug lord El Chapo, literally. A piñata shop in Reynosa has been carefully crafting piñatas bearing El Chapo's likeness, including gun-framed sunglasses and his distinctive mustache, since the kingpin's escape from a maximum security prison. The shop owner says that the piñata came about following requests from customers. An army of chefs in Mexico City crafted a 65-meter-long monster sandwich known as a torta in Mexico, the biggest sandwich ever made in Latin America. It was made up of thousands of pieces of bread, lettuce, onion, and tomato, and hundreds of liters of mayonnaise, mustard, and spicy sauces. Officials hope the 1.6-ton sandwich will give local businesses that specialize in the Mexican torta an economic boost.
Santa Muerte, Our Lady of Death, is a female saint honored by millions of devotees across Mexico. According to some experts, it is the fastest growing cult in the world. The worship of the female skeleton figure was born out of the Mexican criminal underworld. And it's pretty simple to understand why, since she does not distinguish between good and evil and provides a safe delivery to the afterlife for her followers. Now, our next guest for today is Francisco James, an ethnologist from Mexico City, and he will help us understand this phenomena. Hi, Francisco.
Hello there in Israel.
So, can we refer to Santa Muerte as a religion?
Well, anthropologically speaking, yes, it's a religion because it has followers, it has, worshippers, a place of cult, it has chants, icons, symbols. The Vatican would not consider the culto de la muerte, la Santa Muerte, as a religion. They even call it a pagan cult.
Tell us a bit how and when the Santa Muerte first started.
The icon, it's an Hellenic icon that went from the Greeks to the Etruscan, from there to the Romans, then from there to the Catholicism. And then when the Spaniards came, it mixed with the ancient death cult here in Mexico. So it's a fusion of all these beliefs. So, we have icons since the 18th century, but when it grew, it was in 1995. There was this economic crisis, and a lot of people started turning to the Santa Muerte, asking for favors, with what the government could not provide, the Santa Muerte would provide.
And Francisco, the reverence towards death is an issue that goes back to the ancient Mexican civilizations. Are there any other contemporary characteristics or phenomena that originate in that era?
We also have the Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. And in this cult, we can trace pre-Hispanic influences from the Maya, the Aztecs. Now we are in the Zócalo. This used to be the place where you had the Templo Mayor, the big pyramid. Mm-hmm. And the north part of the temple was dedicated to the dead. It was Mictlantecuhtli. It was the Lord of the Dead. And it was part of life. It cannot be any life without death. So it's this duality. And of course, yes, we still keep on paying tribute to these rituals. We even at home, we make this, we have these altars full with flowers and food for our dead. And on the 1st and the 2nd of November, our relatives that are dead will come and feed from this altar we offer them.
And how do the official Christian institutions view this cult?
They're totally against la Santa Muerte. And more now because there has been some certain rituals where they would offer people, blood of people. They would kill these people and offer it to the shrines. The Catholics here in Mexico believe that it's competing against the Virgin Mary. And even you find more shrines here from La Santa Muerte on the streets than the Virgin Mary. So there's a lot of hatred from certain sectors towards La Santa Muerte.
Francisco, thank you for this very interesting interview.
Thank you.
The Mexican national soccer team recently won its 7th Gold Cup final, which is the continental tournament for teams in North and Central America and the Caribbean. However, coach Miguel Herrera, who also led his team to the last 16 of the 2014 World Cup, might not be remembered thanks to his professional achievements. Isn't it so, Alberto Lari?
Hello, my pleasure to talk with you. Well, it's a funny situation with the Mexican national team. Where it happened that the coach, Miguel Herrera, had a fight with a TV broadcaster, with a TV commentator. So the situation currently is quite particular because Mexico doesn't have, at this point, a coach. Miguel Herrera always had this kind of particular behavior when he was a soccer player 20 years ago. He didn't go to a World Cup, to the World Cup in USA in 1994, exactly, or in particular, because of his bad behavior. So right now, after his rumble that he had at the Philadelphia airport with this TV journalist, Miguel Herrera was sacked. If you ask me, I totally agree that he could not stay there.
So, is soccer the most popular sports in your country? What else?
It's not a sport in Mexico. It's a religion, I could say. Football, it's part of the routine. It's part of life. Anyway, even though Mexico has never achieved a really good World Cup, For us, the typical World Cup is to get inside and to be in the tournament until the round of 16. But yes, I could say it's not that it's the main sport, it's a religion in Mexico, even more important than baseball or boxing, where Mexico has had much more relevant exponents. I would say Chavez in boxing, I would say Valenzuela or currently Titan Gonzalez in baseball. They have achieved much more than the football players, but football is their religion in Mexico.
Alberto, thank you for this interview.
Cheers, bye-bye.
And thank you all for focusing with us on Mexico. See you next time. Let's hope that Coach Herrera is not after the focus team.